Good morning and welcome. I think we have a pretty full house, so thank you all for coming on this event. Michel Nobel, I'm the MD for Microsoft UK. I think this event, we did it probably 3 months ago. And at that time, we talked a lot about things that we were announcing, things that were happening. I think that today, the good news is that we see real things live, working, people applying it, people using it. So I think in this 3 months, I think we made tremendous progress. If you think about our mobility strategy, and if you think about our more high-end view about being a cloud-first, mobile-first company. So today, I hope you get all that kind of proof, if you will, versus us talking about it. Now, I can normally show you a lot of slides that you would expect from Microsoft, of course, about what it means to, let's say, live in the world of mobile-first, cloud-first. But I think that I would just give you a very short snapshot, actually, how I work and how I think that, what you think about being a digital enterprise, how this comes to play. So I use two devices in my life to run Microsoft UK. The first device is a Surface Pro 3, very new. This is an engineering device, so I'm not going to do any demo here because that will be risky. But at the same time, I think this is a device that actually is just being released. It's power, it's performance, it's a 12-inch screen, it's thin and it's light. It has a kickstand that can go all the way. You will have the opportunity to have docking stations with it, so it's really a device that you can use in an enterprise environment as well. I think this device has an i5 Intel processor. There will be i7 the version is coming as well. So this device is clearly, I would say, a tablet, but really in a very light and a very compelling way. And which is important to have the right hardware. This is a device where you do consumption, so you can do all the great reading, you can do Blinkbox video, you can do Netflix, all the consumer stuff you would like to do and consume it. But at the same time, this is also a great working device. And if you think about it, you have your keyboard, and then you have really a laptop. And there's a nice feature actually that clicks to your screen if you want to do it on your laptop, so it doesn't tip over. So that's a small thing to talk about on the keyboard. More importantly, of course, is about how do I use it and what kind of apps do I use. So I live actually most of my day in 3 apps. It's Outlook, which will not be a surprise. It's Yammer, because I use Yammer to really drive the behavior change or the cultural change in Microsoft, and I think Yammer is a great tool to do that. And the other big thing is OneNote. I do all my stuff in OneNote, and not only me, but all the people in Microsoft are more or less standardizing on OneNote. And the great thing is that all my briefing notes, all my financial data, everything that is relevant for me is pushed to OneNote in one central way through the cloud. So it's always up to date. And if I meet John here, who runs the enterprise group, I meet him somewhere, we all have the same version of the truth. So it's really a great application to say, okay, you have cloud-enabled stuff that really gives you an end-to-end view on whatever device and wherever you are. So I think that's very important to call out. The other thing is clearly that this device is helping me to be very productive in the office or if I'm working at home and do some stuff. At the same time, the whole notion about being a cloud-first, mobile company first is clearly about, okay, if I'm mobile and I'm on the road and I spend actually 60% of my time externally. Before I show this, I need to show you one other thing. Maybe it's just me very passionate about it, but like I said, we live in OneNote, and I have to put in my stupid password again, but that's security. So sorry for that. And it's, by the way, it's BitLocker enabled, so if you lose it, then it will be all safe. If you live in OneNote, the pen that comes with the device is just awesome. So it's not about, scribbling things that you cannot recall anymore. This is really almost a fountain pen experience. And the good thing is that you click on this device and OneNote comes up, even if your device is locked. So I can start writing, taking notes. I do another click, and you see that it's gone. It's moved into the cloud. So immediately, it's moved into the cloud. And then I come to my mobile device, which I use. If I'm on the road, like I said, 60% of my time I'm external. This is how I run Microsoft UK if I'm on the road. So this device gives me the opportunity. It's the Nokia 1520. It's a big device, you can say, yes, but I don't need glasses, so that's good. But it's really a device where you really get the experience of reading, getting PowerPoints, even Excel sheets you can read on this one. And again, I'm using OneNote. I'm using Outlook, and I'm using Yammer, do all the stuff that I use also on this device. And the great thing is about being mobile first, cloud first, is that all those cloud infrastructure that is behind this is just pushing all these things, seamlessly to this device. So the note I just made, push to the cloud, they are synced to this device, so I can immediately look at it, and vice versa. The things that I do here will be on that device. So I think that's a kind of example about how I try to use it. The Link client on this device on mobile is just great. So the experience you have joining Linko, and this is not about trying to put in a kind of PIN numbers. You just click join the meeting. Link is there, and the quality is just awesome. So I think that's something that I really appreciate also from being mobile and being on the road a lot. So with that, I think, and I can talk for hours on this, but I will not bore you too much, and you'll get great demos today that will tell you actually much better what I'm trying to tell here. And today I think it's also good that you can get your notes here about who to let's say to introduce today. So first of all, I think that I'm really happy to have customers here today and partner to really talk about how they are taking actually mobile first, cloud first to the next level, and they're here to share their experience and insights. So that's British Telecom will talk about this. We have Rico talk about this, Barclays, we have Cambridgeshire Police, and we have Ridian, who is the partner that actually helped Rico to develop some of the apps they have. So that's great for having really customers on stage talking about this. Secondly, I'm very delighted that we have Chris Webber here from Microsoft Mobile Devices, and he will talk about, from a global perspective, what Microsoft is doing in that respect and how we actually take this to the next level as well. Also very pleased that we have John Delaney here, who's Area Vice President for IDC, and he of course share all the trends that are happening in the market and what we can learn from that as well. I think that I'm not going to introduce our next speaker yet. We do have 5 Lumia L620s to win today. So if you do your, let's say, evaluation form and all this stuff, then there's a great chance that you get a 620, which is just an awesome device as well. Last for me to say that I really appreciate that you're here today. I really hope that you really get good insight about what we're about, mobile first, cloud first. And I think to kick it off, we have a speaker from Microsoft, Dave Copeland, who will not talk about technology only, but he actually wrote 2 books, Business Reimagined, which was his first book, and now it's The Rise of the Humans, which is his second book. You have all a copy here. And it's a really nice way to get a sense about technology on one hand, but at the same time, as humans, how do you use it in the right way, and how you really cope with all the things that are happening from a technology perspective, and at the same time be sure that we all enjoy the right technology at the right time to do the right thing. So with that, I would like to introduce Dave. Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle. So, first thing I always need to do, Michelle never lists my job title. I think it's because he's slightly embarrassed. I am... Yeah, he is. Yeah, very good. I am Microsoft UK's Chief Envisioning Officer. Check me out, right? You need to know that it's a comedy job title. I work for a company you will well know that for many, many years has talked to you all about the incredible technology and the products that we make. And you would think that today would be a day where we are going to continue to talk about technology and products. But my role is different. My role is part of a growing number of people inside the organization who are trying to bring to life the opportunity that our technology and products enable in human beings. My job is about projecting forward to the future of how human beings are going to want to live, work, and play. So essentially, my job is about the future of humanity, right? And I kind of figured if I'm going to have a job that's about the future of humanity, I demand a job title with a certain degree of pomposity to support it. I think you'll agree I've achieved that. The second thing I told my mum when I was a kid, I said, Mum, one day, I'm going to be CEO at Microsoft. You just watch me. And some of you will know there's recently been an opening. And this is still the only way I'm going to blag that job title. So the story today is about this thing called the digital deluge. You've all been provided with a copy of the book. It's basically a story about how technology is shaping how we think and how we work. And part of the challenge we have as human beings is some of this often happens unnoticed to us. We make choices that we don't really realize the impact. And this isn't about bad technology. This is simply about bad usage. And I wanted to wake up people to the opportunity that's being missed if we don't achieve that. The other thing I have to explain about myself, and again, I know you'll find this hard to believe, but I have dedicated my entire career to the IT industry, some 20-odd years. I have chosen to work for one of the world's largest technology companies. I have gone to the extremes of personal grooming to grow a beard and a ponytail. And I also quite like Star Trek. What a surprise. Star Trek's really important, right? Because it teaches you, when you're a young, naive, gullible kid like what I was, it teaches you that technology is supposed to be a force for good in our society. It's supposed to be something that enables human beings to reach up and extend beyond what they could normally achieve. This is why technology exists. It exists to help us change behavior, to change what's possible. My problem is the 20 years, my experience in IT, I look around me, I look at how we all use technology today, and I don't see a big release. I don't see this empowerment. What I see instead is a prison. And again, it's formed by the human beings that use the technology. We become slaves to technology. Who doesn't get enough email? I don't even have to write a punchline to that joke. Everybody gets the pain of that story. So we set out a few years ago to tell a very different story, to focus on the potential, to look at the problems, and really to wake people up to the opportunity that sits in their hands every day. So we wrote the first book, which was Business Reimagined. I'm a cheap date. You can get all of the books for free online. The Business Reimagined book was about why work isn't working, so it's focused purely on the workforce. The second book that you have now is about the human beings. It's about the human potential with technology. So there's this concept of the digital deluge, and we're all aware of it. We talk about having too much information every day. But the digital deluge, we have to understand, is actually in two dimensions. It's not just the fact that we have too much information. It's the fact that now, thanks to these things, the fact that we have these beautiful, engaging, wonderful devices and the connected services that power them, we cram in every moment of our waking day access to too much information. We are constantly looking for more information. We seek out more information wherever we are, whatever we're doing. And often, it's having a very negative effect on what we're doing. These devices, they disrupt us. They change the way we think. They interrupt our behavior. And we have to be aware of this. And again, this isn't about bad devices. It's just simply about how we have chosen to use them, how we have slipped in to using them. Because we've developed a number of coping mechanisms. And these coping mechanisms are really at the root of the challenge that we face ahead. If we're going to go into a world where it is mobile first and it is cloud first, then we have to be aware of these and make some very different choices. So the first coping mechanism is about how stressed we become. So we're so stressed at work because we have too much information, the devices are with us. It goes back to the issue with Alexander Graham Bell, funnily enough, and it's all his fault. Because in 1876, he created this incredible invention, the telephone, that was genius, right? It was wonderful, because he took us from a world that was all about machine-to-machine communication, so telex and telegraph machines with a human operator transferring information from one place to another, to a human-to-human experience. So this was brilliant, because we all understand how to communicate with each other. Alexander Graham Bell comes up, and he enables us to be able to communicate anywhere around the world. The challenge is, as we've gone further, we now live in this brilliant world, right? I can stand on the street corner outside of this office. I can phone pretty much anywhere in the world. I am globally connected thanks to these devices. But the really interesting thing that started happening to all of us is, as much as I am now able to connect to people who are geographically separated, this technology has started to disconnect me from the people that I'm with. It's starting to, you've seen situations like this, or maybe you've seen this at work, where we use collaborative technology. How many of you work in an open plan office? How many of you sit in your open plan desk and email the person sat next to you? Right? One time we go, you're bloody next to you, talk to them, say hello. Right? This is the challenge, right? And the technology, it sucks us in. And so we forget, it disconnects us. How many of you have this experience at home? Right? We're all familiar with this. I sit down for some quiet family time with the Coplin family. We sit down to dinner. I get out my phone. My son gets out his nameless tablet device, and my wife gets out her device. And we all sit there in our own little digital worlds. It's just insane. And then there's this other thing about how the technology is actually disconnecting us from the world around us. How many times have you been to a concert or some big public event, New Year's Eve in Trafalgar Square, only to see thousands of people watch the event from here? You know? And it's just bizarre. I went up and spoke to somebody who was doing that, and I said, what are you doing? You know, do you not think you might want to enjoy the environment? You know, what's going on? And it's all right, I've got an HD camera. Right, yeah, I've got one of those too. It's called My Eyes. You know? And so we just forget, because the technology's there, we feel we have to use it, and it disconnects us. So the coping mechanisms that we've invented to cope with all of this stuff actually caused a problem. Because we have these devices, because we have these incredible services, we start to skim information. We would rather go and read the next email or look for the next tweet or click on the next link than then take some time to take a step back and think about how we were going to answer the last email. We have other issues where we snack on information all the time. We fill every moment of our day with a little information snack. You will all do this. I don't know anybody these days who goes in an elevator more than 3 floors without pulling out their phone. Just check. We fill just all these empty calories of information, and again, we're not allowing our brains the time to go deep. And then we start to use filters, and filters are brilliant, right? Search engines are really important. They help us knife and fork our way through all of the content. But search engines, for all the good that they can do, they don't promote discovery. With search engines, when we show you things that we know that you're going to like, it's challenging then to find things that you don't know that you're going to like. So we have to choose when we use the filters and when we don't. But my favorite of all the coping mechanisms is the lie of multitasking. Multitasking, it's like a modern day skill. Everybody in the workforce needs to be able to multitask. I am a 21st century worker, therefore I multitask. Problem is, you've got to remember that multitasking is an entirely computer-based concept. It was invented in the mid-60s by a bunch of computer scientists in white lab coats who wanted to get central processing units to be more efficient. It is not a human trait. We know from our own studies and from other studies that we've looked at that human beings, this is not about a male-female thing, all human beings are on average a third less efficient when they multitask. And then there's another dynamic that kicks in. Every time you get disrupted, it actually takes you a long period of time before you get back to the task at which you were doing. In our studies, we did some experiments on our own people, because we're like that, and we found that if you're a developer writing some pretty hairy code, and then somebody distracts you, it would take people, on average, 23 minutes to return back to the task that they were doing. Because what happens, you make a choice, right? Doing the coding's hard cognitive work. Before I go back to that hard work, I'll have a quick look at my email. I'll just have a look at Twitter, see what the footy scores are. And so we take this slow, meandering path back to the task that we were doing. So in a world of constant disruption, in a world of too much information, we're actually challenging our very definition of what productivity means. So again, this is not about bad technology. This is just simply about the coping mechanisms that we've inherited. But the kicker for me is actually this is disconnecting our own cognitive process. In a world where we continue to snack, we binge on information, we try and multitask, we're disrupted all the time, we actually change our own cognitive processes. We stop using the ability to think deeply. We very rarely have a moment when we can take a step back and think about the challenges that we face at home or at work, because those moments are now taken away by more and more information. So we live in a world of more information. We live in a world of incredible devices. And yet, we talk about the problem of information overload. And I find this hilarious, right? As someone who is naively optimistic about the role of technology in our future, we are complaining about the very thing that will enable more revenue, more profitability, more productivity, more capability in how we use technology. If you think that information is a gateway to achieving more, either on a personal level or at a professional level, we're complaining that we've got too much of it. It's just insane. So my call, the whole point about the rise of the humans, is we've got to turn that around. Instead of hating the digital deluge, we've got to learn to harness it, be it on an individual level or at an organizational level. And there are some things that you can do, and these are the areas that we focus on in the book. The first thing we've got to understand, in a connected world, our view of the customer could fundamentally change if we seek to do it. Traditionally today, most organizations think about their customers in a single dimension. They think about the dimension of the transaction that customer is just about to enact. In reality, there are 4 dimensions of the customer. In a connected big data world, there are 4 dimensions that are available to all of you to access and understand more about your customers. The second dimension is what some organizations are already doing today, and that's a historical dimension, which is, what have you done before? Okay, that's interesting. But where it really starts to get interesting is where you start to look at the third and fourth dimension. The third dimension is about me as a holistic whole human being. Yes, I am a Microsoft employee. Yes, I am a Star Trek fan. Yes, I am a father. Yes, I am an ice hockey nut. You better bloody understand which one of those personas I'm using. When I come to your brand, when I come to your organization, you better figure out which one of those that I am, because if you don't, you're not going to be giving me the service that I love. Many of you will shop on Amazon. Some of you with kids will have a similar experience to me. When I go to Amazon, and this is not to pick on Amazon, everybody's in the same kind of boat. When I shop for my son's birthday present on Amazon, why do I then spend the next 6 weeks getting shown adverts by Amazon for Lego? Right? I've just bought the Lego. I'm not buying that for another 12 months or maybe Christmas if he's been good. Right? Understand that I'm now a Microsoft employee. Give me some business books or give me some things about motorcycle. I don't know, but understand who I am. So this sense of a holistic whole individual. And then the final dimension is this social connectedness. So we know about the power of the social connected individual, but this isn't just about people whining about organizations on Twitter, although that's important. This is about if I can understand the connection of people to each other, I can infer from that insight that will help me change what I deliver to the customer. So the point about the connected customer is this data is increasingly available to all of you. And you should be looking inside your organization beyond that first dimension, beyond the second dimension, to really understand how can you give your people access to that data to give them greater insight to who your customers are and what kind of intent they have when they transact with you. But in order to do that, you need employees who are connected. You need employees who are transformed and able to be transformative. They are given the right tools to collaborate in the right kind of way. Michelle talked about our use of Yammer internally. That thing is a fundamental cultural change for our organization in how we collaborate because it is based on a principle of open sharing. Everybody shares what we do. And we work out in the open so people can see what's going on. And when you have a workforce that's connected in that way, can access the data of the organization in that way, you can then start to unleash the power of your workforce to connect that data and to bring that to experience for your customers. And then there's data, right? You'd be surprised, I'm an IT guy and I'm going to give you a little lecture about big data. Well, I have as much right to jump on that bandwagon as anybody else in the industry. But the point about big data is we've not really understood the point yet. When we talk about big data, most organizations, they start thinking about business analysis or business insight. And yeah, you'll get that from data, but there's a whole load of other stuff that you're going to get that will transform your businesses. We think of 3 key areas of the opportunity of the data that lies hidden within your organization, stuff that you don't really pay any mind to today. Number 1, I guarantee you will all have data inside your organization that will have monetary value to other organizations. So what are you doing to find that data? What are you doing to make that data available? Create a new revenue stream, create a new business opportunity. You will have other data that if you connect it to other disparate data sets will then also derive value. Insurance companies now look at people's spending habits because they know, for example, that the people who buy those little felt furniture protectors to keep the scuff marks off your wooden floors are several times more likely to make their payments than people who don't. Who knew, right? This is what happens when you connect disparate data together. And then the third area is, if you're going to collect new data, start thinking about the multiple opportunities for what that data could do. So, for example, if you're sticking CCTV into your retail stores, don't just spot shoplifters with that data. Use it to understand the footfall through your stores. Look for multiple opportunities. Because when you unlock the data dividend in this way, you start to see the true power of big data. But big data itself is just a preamble to the real deal, the big picture, the thing that is going to change our relationship with technology forever, and it's already happening. And it's this thing called machine learning. Now, machine learning is this incredibly powerful computer science tool, basically using statistical pattern recognition to infer insight and meaning from vast swathes of data. That sounds like a load of computer science gobbledygook, but let me show you a real example of how this is going to change what we do. Some of you will have seen the news from last week, but we demonstrated live speech-to-speech translation via Skype. So we had a gentleman speaking English over a Skype call to a lady who was hearing German. She was speaking German, the gentleman was hearing English. This kind of Star Trek stuff is all powered by machine learning. These are the kinds of transformational services that will change the landscape of our world. They will change our relationship with technology forever. And it's not just about translation. It's about the recommendation engines. It's about all of the insight that we derive from data. This thing is huge. And the interesting thing about machine learning is when machine learning started, it was a concept that's based in the cloud. It's a tool that you need huge compute power, huge storage in order to be able to activate. But what's happening as technology progresses, and organizations like Microsoft, we're starting to make these tools much more accessible. So just like if you remember 15 years ago, if you wanted to write a formula in Excel, you needed 7 manuals, a PhD, and about 4 weeks, and if you were lucky, you might get the bleeming thing to work. These days, you click on a button in the ribbon and the thing auto-completes. The same is happening with our access to the power of the algorithms. They're becoming closer and closer and closer. We released a product recently called Power BI that enables you to use a natural language query against an unstructured data set. So I could have a completely chaotic data set. I could simply type in, tell me who sold the most in the last 3 months. And what Power BI does is it goes to our old friend Bing, because Bing understands natural language, and it says, listen, this is what I've been asked. What does that mean? And Bing says, well, based on a statistical probability, it probably means they're looking for time period 3 months, and they're looking for highest revenue. So these tools, this isn't just about data scientists in white coats and thick glasses anymore. This is about every single member of your organization having access to the kind of power and capability that this has. And if you want to understand how these tools work, they're all based on pattern recognition. Some of you will remember this email that did the rounds in about 2003, and it was a proper bit of research that showed if you're an English-speaking person, you could get a bunch of text, and as long as you put the first and last characters in the right space, you could mix up all of the other characters, and you could pretty much understand what's being said. Because what's happening in your brains is you have a pattern, you have a model, you have a framework of language, and that model enables you to decipher that text. What do you think happens if you showed this text to someone who doesn't speak English, or to a child who has yet to form their language capability? They couldn't make sense of it. And this is the limitation of the technology, and we'll talk more about that in a sec. So I don't see this dystopian future where the algorithms take over and all of the white-collar workers are redundant because we've got the algorithms to do the work and the robots to do the heavy lifting. I see a world where the humans can stand on the shoulders of those digital giants to achieve more. Because what we know is that machine learning is constrained by the framework that it's given. So there are some great examples. IBM provide us with some lovely ones. IBM have 2 supercomputers, one called Big Blue and the other called Watson. Now, Big Blue is the world's best chess player, and Watson is the world's best Jeopardy player, American TV quiz show. These are supercomputers. These are probably some of the most powerful computers in the world. Respectively, the best chess player, the best Jeopardy player in the world. I could beat both of them with one hand tied behind my back at a game of Snap or a game of Tiddlywinks, because they don't have the framework for those games. Right? This is the limitation of machine learning. And so equally, there's this other problem when we get into robotics. There's this lovely principle called Moravec's paradox, which is actually the stuff that we think is really, really hard, the cognitive stuff. It's dead simple for computers. But the fine motor controls, picking things up, that we think is really easy because we've done it since we were kids, is actually really hard. So for example, if I were to ask any of you, what's 47 divided by 13? You're all thinking, oh, God, that's a bit hard. And you might reach for a calculator. How hard do you think that calculation is for a computer? Nanoseconds. Now, if I were to throw this remote to you, I guarantee you one of you would be able to catch it. Computer robot couldn't do that. It's really, really hard. So as much as we can create the world's best chess player, it can't move the bloody pieces. It can't set up the board. Right? These are the limitations that we face with the technology, and that's why human beings have a massive role to play in the future of work and the future of how technology progresses. So moving forward, there are some things that I want you all to think about in your organizations, and they're all about how you deal with the digital deluge and how you learn to harness, not hate, that deluge and what it can do for you. The first thing is you have to understand, if you want to deliver transformational experiences for your customers, they don't just happen, you don't just come out of thin air or magic. You need transformational employees. You need employees who are empowered to be transformational. And in order for them to be empowered to be transformational, they need transformational tools. Tools like Yammer that completely change the way they collaborate. The mobile devices that you'll see today that enable them to work from anywhere, treating work as an activity, not as a destination. That is the only way you will achieve true transformation in the services that you provide your customers. We need to stop talking about organizations and organization structure, and instead, we should be setting out to create intelligent organisms. And the difference between an organism and an organization is an organism can change, can evolve, can bend, can weave, depending on whatever's happening on any given time, whatever the market does, wherever you go, whatever happens, whatever people you have available, the organism will self-heal, it will adapt. And again, you can only do that if your people are empowered in the right kind of way. And in order to do that, you've got to let your people free, my brothers and sisters. This is all about all of the incredible talent that you have locked up inside your employees. And most organizations, they think about their employees in specific little domains. Dave's here to fulfill this job description. Forget all of the other skills that Dave has. Forget all of the other experiences, the wacky stuff he does on weekends, whatever that may be. All of that stuff is just left lying on the ground. When in reality, if you've got an organization that can be an intelligent organism, can look beyond just the roles of the job description, look for all of the skills and empower those individuals to get engaged in different areas of the business to add value, whatever that may be, you start to go a long way to getting to the right place. Most importantly, this is about this thing called a data culture. And that sounds a bit weird, but everybody in your organization needs to adopt this kind of curiosity, this inquisitive mind, want to have access to more data, want to understand different areas of the business, be empowered with not just the tools like the devices, but also the services. Today, organizations, they lock up all of their information in information silent. Well, you can't see the finance department's data, you can't see the... None of that, right? We don't need any of that, unless, of course, you have some regulatory issues that mean that you do. But the reality is, if you instill in your people the ability to want to understand more about data, to want to understand more about the organization, to have that as a culture supported by the right kind of tools, then you can get much further in terms of what you can do with technology to transform your business. So when I look forward to the future, I do not see the Terminator, right? This is not the Terminator. The internet is not Skynet. Instead, I see a very different future. I see a world where human beings are standing on the shoulders of these digital giants. And it reminds me, it's a bit like when I was a kid, I did my maths O-level, and if you don't know what O-levels are, they're kind of like GCSEs, but a bit harder. And it was at a point in our society where we were debating the role of the pocket calculator in education, because pocket calculators had just become really sort of affordable for everybody. And I did my maths O-level with a bloody logbook and a slide rule, right? Now, let me tell you, I am a better mathematician with a calculator than I am with a tabulated bit of paper and a slidey bit of plastic. Yes, I need to know the basics, but a calculator enables me to achieve more. And the issue that we face in today's society is exactly the same. We are being offered this incredible potential, this incredible power in technology. It offers this. The reason technology exists is for us to transform and change. But if all we do is sit back and use it the same way we've always done things, based on our experiences for the past couple of hundred years, we will never, ever achieve the greatness that technology lays out in front of us. So my call to all of you, above everything else, is to rise above that. Rise above what the technology can do. Think about what you can use the technology to reimagine, to transform your business and your relationship with your customers. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm done. Thank you very much. And I'd now like to introduce John Delaney from IDC. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you, Dave, and good morning, everyone. A lot of great food for thought there in Dave's session. One thing that you said, Dave, particularly resonated with me, I have to say. This thing about, if you buy Lego and forever after you get recommended Lego. Some of you may be familiar with a service called the Cloud Player, whereby essentially everything that you ever bought on CD now gets made available to you in digital form on the cloud, and you can stream it and listen to it whenever you want. Great service, really like it. Trouble was, my wife once persuaded me against my better judgment to buy a Ronan Keating record. And there it is, there's Ronan in my record collection, a permanent and ineradicable blot in that list of albums that I bought. Dave, they've got to fix that. So the other thing that Dave said that I thought was particularly useful for the context of what I want to talk about this morning was this link between mobility and the cloud. So I spend most of my time at IDC thinking about and researching what mobility means. But mobility in the cloud for IDC are two pillars of what we see as no less than a transformation in enterprise IT. We think that we are in the beginning of an era in which we're moving towards what we call the third platform of enterprise IT. The second platform being client-server, and the first platform being mainframe terminal. And what's really key to understand about this third platform is that the patterns of adoption are going to be completely different. In the client-server era, based on PCs connected over LANs, first of all, and later on connected via the internet, people came across this technology in their working lives, first of all. They came across personal computers, the internet, the World Wide Web, email, in their offices. And they started gradually to understand what these things could do, how powerful they were, how they could help them perhaps in their personal lives. And when these things became more affordable, they started to buy them. So we had this direction of adoption from work to the personal life. What's happening in the third platform era, this mobile and cloud era, is exactly the opposite. people have these things available to them as individuals first. These things being smartphones and tablets, apps, and mobile broadband. People can already afford these things. So they know how powerful they are before they start using them in work. People using these things to transform the way they do their everyday lives, the way they bank, the way they shop, the way they interact, the way they socialize. And then people take these things to work. And that's where the damage starts to happen if IT isn't careful. Because they do it in an unstructured, informal way. Sometimes they do it in a way that IT doesn't even know about. And even when they do know about it, there's very little they can do about stopping things like, for example, putting corporate data into cloud storage on an ad hoc basis, which is unsecure. Things like putting corporate data on your device and then leaving it in the back of a taxi. Things like tweeting remarks which are pernicious, perhaps libelous, under a company account name. So the first phase of mobility in the enterprise, and we're still to some extent in that phase, has been all about really damage limitation. It's been about mitigating the risks that employees expose the organization to when they bring these powerful mobile technologies into their working lives. I want to say a little bit particularly, before we get onto devices, about the connectivity, because sometimes connectivity is a bit of a Cinderella when we talk about mobility. It's taken as a given to a large extent. 4G LTE is a really key shift in mobility. Yes, 4G is faster than 3G, and to some extent that gets you to understand what it's about, but it's much bigger than that. 4G, as well as having faster data rates, has a much lower latency. That means the round-trip time that takes data to get from you back to you over the network. It's an all-IP network. It's a data network for the first time in mobile, which is a key difference between that and 3G. 3G, of course, has circuit switch channels in it. So for the first time, we have a pure data network. And for the first time, we have a mobile technology which has been adopted globally, albeit on different frequencies, but as a standard by all the major operators of the world. So that's something which, really holds out a lot of promise for the enterprise IT people. From the point of view of users, it's much more simple. 4G is something that behaves like your desktop connection. For the first time you use 4G, the thing you realize straight away is, this is like my desk. It's fast, it's instant, it's responsive. And so people start to use the network in a different way when they have a 4G connection. Trouble is that so far, in Europe at any rate, 4G has largely been, again, a consumer-first phenomenon. Most 4G subscribers at the moment are consumers. Businesses have yet to start picking up 4G in a concerted way, and that's a pity, because if businesses start to adopt 4G more concertedly, operators start to make more money out of it. And if they make more money out of it, they're more inclined to invest in their networks and make the networks better, so that enterprises get still more value out of them. So you get, if you're lucky, a virtuous circle of adoption and investment. But we're not there at the moment, because mostly businesses are still taking a somewhat wait-and-see, somewhat standoffish approach to 4G adoption. But there are some early verticals that we're finding in our research that are already starting to realize the benefits of 4G. So, for example, TV broadcasters are using it quite extensively across Europe now as an alternative to satellite for outside broadcasting. It's flexible, it's cheaper. Medical in particular, you can now start to transmit diagnostic quality images over the mobile network, which means that when a paramedic's on site attending to an accident, they can take a picture and send it back to a specialist at the hospital who can recommend treatment there and then. So those are just two examples of a much wider range of benefits that 4G connectivity can offer to enterprises. Coming now to the devices aspect of mobility. We hear a lot about BYOD, bring your own device, this phenomenon whereby, well, all right, if people are going to bring their own devices and use them at work, we'll make that formal. We'll bring some policies and frameworks and systems in place that can control that can at least limit the damage and perhaps even exploit that in the enterprise. BYOD is taken off to quite a large extent in the US, and for a while it looked as though it was going to be vogue in Europe as well. What we're showing here is the results of our most recent edition of a 6-monthly survey that we carry out of European enterprises. And one of the things we ask them about is BYOD. So we say, do you have formal policies in place to allow your employees to bring their own devices and use them at work? And about a third of them do. That doesn't mean the whole enterprise, of course. It could be just a few employees. But at least to some extent, about a third of enterprises say that they have some form of BYOD in place. And about another quarter say they intend to do that over the next 18 months. What I find really interesting about this finding is when I compare it with the same question a year ago, the percentage of enterprises that do not plan to have BYOD is about the same. Some of those quarter that said yes a year ago have now put those plans in place. They've come to fruition. But what we're not seeing is a significant amount of new companies intending to adopt BYOD. We think this is the first data confirmation that we have of something we're also hearing anecdotally, which is actually European employees don't like BYOD so much as American employees. There are a number of reasons for that. There's a kind of a cultural expectation here that you expect your employer, I beg your pardon, to provide you with the tools that you need to do your job. You don't expect to have to buy them yourself. Another reason why BYOD is perhaps less popular here is that some of the most popular devices, one of the reasons that people want to bring their own devices is because they want a particular device that's popular. Some of those devices are now being provided by enterprises. And so if your employer is going to give you that device, your desire to bring your own goes away. And also, when people actually come up against what's involved in bringing their own device and using it for work in a formal way, they start to become a bit less keen, having literally to sign forms in some cases, having to have parts of the device which are under your control or parts which are not under your control. People start to find that quite cumbersome, quite onerous sometimes. So for all those reasons, what we're actually seeing in Europe now is an increasing preference for CYOD, choose your own device, whereby the employer has a list of devices from which the employee can select the one that they want. The list, of course, varies according to role, and there are a lot of other variations of the model. But in principle, what this is a gravitation of the selection and procurement of mobile devices back away from the employee, back towards the corporate IT department, which has some big implications for future patterns of adoption. What all this adds up to, we think, is the cusp of a transition from an early phase of mobility, this consumerization-based phase of mobility, in which essentially the objective has been to manage the risks of mobility, and towards a second phase where increasingly mobile is seen not as an auxiliary, not as something which gives you access to your systems when you can't access them in the way you really want to do, which is from your desktop. Rather, in this phase, mobile devices and networks are treated as the primary access mode for IT systems. That's a fundamental shift away from traditional development paradigms. And in terms of motivation, the big difference between the consumerization and the mobile first phases is that it's no longer about managing the risk, it's about exploiting the benefit of mobility. It's about making mobile not something that's happening to you, but something that works for you as an organization. Of course, things are not that simple in reality. There's a wide amount of variation in what companies are actually doing in mobility. So in order to try and make some sense of that in our research, IDC has developed what we call our mobile maturity model, in which we define essentially 5 broad stages of maturity characterized by various things. And of course, this is just a summary here. There's a lot more where that came from, I'm afraid. But fundamentally, what we're talking about here is a spectrum between the least mature phase of mobility, in which essentially IT is reacting to what's happening. They're fixing problems. in which mobility developments, if they happen at all in the IT department, don't happen in a coordinated way. And in fact, more often, mobility developments tend to happen not from the IT department, from line of business departments, such as marketing. It's people who understand what they want to do with mobile and are getting little cooperation from IT, but they have the budget and the expertise to go ahead and do it themselves. So in that least mature phase, things tend to be very uncoordinated, therefore very inefficient. And the focus tends to be very much on the devices in that ad hoc phase. Mobility pretty much means devices from the point of view of planning and development. And at the other end of the scale, we have the most mature enterprises, of which, of course, there are very few right now, who are in this mindset that I described just now of mobile being the primary platform for IT, not the auxiliary, but the main means of accessing IT systems. In this phase, companies are thinking about retiring client-server. They're thinking about mobile superseding client-server development. And they're not thinking about how to limit the risks of mobility, but they're thinking about how to firstly exploit the benefits of mobility. More importantly still, they're thinking about how to build and sustain advantage against their competitors by using mobility. And that leads naturally to a migration away from a focus on devices to a focus on applications. Because fundamentally, devices are not a source of competitive advantage. The same devices I can buy, my competitors can buy. Competitive advantage comes from what you do with those devices. And what you do with them is what we call applications. So naturally, as companies migrate up this spectrum of maturity, the focus of development shifts away from devices, not entirely, of course, but it's not the main focus. The main focus becomes the applications. So all that's a little bit abstract, and so I thought I'd, at this point, introduce a couple of examples of what companies are doing as they try to move up to these more mature phases of mobility. And these come from the white paper that I researched and wrote recently, which you will have a copy of. So there's a good deal more detail in there if you're interested in checking them out. But essentially, I wanted to point up two of these. One is a professional services firm. And one of the key things about a mature approach to mobility is there's a strategy. Duh. But actually, this is not common still. Mobility still tends to be tactical more than strategic. So companies that actually have a strategy, better still, one that the IT department sets, start to indicate that they're becoming a bit more mature in their approach. The principal goal of mobility is not related to technology. It's related to the business. It's to do something which is fundamentally of benefit to the business, not a technological issue. In this case, the company's most expensive asset is its people, so it wants to make the most out of them because it's all about the margin. And so it's using mobility to make its people more flexible in the hope and expectation that they'll work longer hours. Very simple. As I said, a focus on applications rather than devices, a key characteristic. In this case, the application is the one which enables people to record how they're spending their time so that the company can immediately and in real time bill the client for their time. And there's no BYOD. The company does allow some of its employees to use their own devices, but it minimizes the extent to which that happens by the simple device of not supporting them. Most people want their IT department to support the devices, so they use the one that the IT department gives them. Second example is one of the regional NHS trusts. And again, it's talking about using mobility for a strategic reason, not for a tactical reason. In this case, the strategy is get more budget. And the way it's getting more budget, primarily, is by increasing the productivity of its clinicians. It's very simple. If you can use mobility to enable your clinicians to see one more patient per day, that translates directly into ROI, which you can take back to the source of your budget as evidence that you're spending the budget well. It also has other objectives which is perhaps less easily to quantify directly, like improving the quality of care and make data recording more accurate, because you do it on site and in real time rather than trying to remember later on when you get back to your desk. Again, applications rather than devices, the key feature. The first project that this trust rolled out was a scheduler for its home nurses, which just made it quicker and easier to find out where they have to go next. Remember, one more appointment per day, productivity. And now it's adding some e-prescribing and ward management systems as well. Again, no BYOD. In this case, the trust reported very little demand for BYOD. And once somebody is interested in BYOD, they show them the forms, and that very quickly puts them off. So, and this is another set of data from the survey that I referred to earlier that we carried out every 6 months, where we ask, what is the most pressing concern? And by the way, this is a survey of IT people, CIOs. What is your most pressing concern when it comes to mobility? And devices still come top. It's still about managing devices, but only just. And what comes second, and again, this is an indication that companies are starting to become more mature in their approach to mobility, is how to make it work with what I've got already. You know, if you're doing a point mobility project, you don't have that problem. It just lives in isolation. It doesn't have to work with the directories, with all of the other stuff you've got at the back end. But when you start thinking about mobility as part of your mainstream IT development, then very quickly you come up against this problem of compatibility with what you got already. So firstly, that indicates to us that enterprises are becoming more mature in their adoption because it comes second. Secondly, it illustrates that one of the main things that companies are looking for when they select the mobile platform, and remember, it's not BYOD, it's CYOD, the company selects. One of the main things they're looking for is compatibility. And there's a number of aspects to this. Firstly, compatibility, as I said, with what you've got in place already, with the devices that are on your desktop, with the application software, with the infrastructure software that you're already running and that you don't want to junk. You want a device which works with those things comparatively easily, rather than one which takes a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of reinvestment to make work with those things. Secondly, it's about the skill sets of your people. Do they have to learn new programming languages? Do they have to learn new frameworks? Or can they reapply the programming skill sets that they have already to the new technology that you're adopting on the mobile side? Obviously, the latter being preferable. From the end user point of view, do they have to relearn everything? Do these things work in a completely different way from the devices they're accustomed to and the applications they're accustomed to already? Or do they work in a similar way? Is it something you can put in the user's hand and say, oh yeah, I know how this works, because they already learned how to use it on a different device? If you can do that, you're halfway there. Otherwise, you've got a lot of re-education and a lot of investment to carry out. And there's the procurement side of things. You've already got suppliers for those things you have in place. Can you use the same suppliers for your mobile devices, and can you therefore leverage those existing relationships to get better deals when you're procuring those devices? So compatibility with what you got already, a key concern of IT departments when they're looking for a device platform. Not the only concern, of course. Other particularly important criteria that we come across in our research when we ask this question are security, of course. And we find, by the way, that security tends to come second in these surveys only when cost comes first. These are in no particular order. Cost, manageability of the system, particularly in terms of compatibility with MDM products. Regional support, particularly for international organizations, of course, the extent to which they don't have to deal with different suppliers in different countries, but have a single pane of glass approach to support. And perhaps surprisingly, but not really when you think about it, a lot of companies mention end user pull as an important criterion. So yes, the procurement is gravitating back from the end user towards the IT department, but the IT department still interested in taking into account its users' preferences for a number of reasons. But one reason is that it just makes it easier to roll out if there isn't pushback. If you're trying to get your users to use something that they're already fairly familiar with and they already like, it's much easier to drive adoption than if you're having to do a top-down diktat. And really, this is a symptom of a bigger issue for IT, which is that they're having to transform their role. Traditionally, IT departments have all been about technology, and they've all been about control. They've been about determining and implementing technology, hopefully to benefit the organization, and controlling how the technology is used and when it's not used, and the circumstances in which it can be used. Those things don't work in the mobile-first era. You can't control what users do because they have too many options for getting around your controls. It's not motherhood and apple pie. It's not about going from control to enablement because that's the right thing to do. It's because you can't do control. If you put controls in place, there are 100 ways that users will find to get around those controls. Better to put things in place that enable users to do what they want so they have no motivation to go around what you put in place. And moving away from a focus on technology to focus on business. Again, smacks of motherhood and apple pie, but there's a very pragmatic reason for that. And the reason for that is that IT budgets are going down and business transformation budgets are going up. So if you as a CIO are using mobility in order to address the things that the business transformation people want to do, you'll have access to budgets that you won't have access to if you're just buying kit. So that's everything I really wanted to cover in this session. If I want to leave you with one message, it's this. It's a journey. Right now, a lot of enterprises are still focused on devices. They're still in that ad hoc, reactive mode. But we're seeing an increasing number of UK enterprises who are now at least starting to understand that they need to use mobility to benefit the business in a more fundamental way. And they've at least started on the journey to get there. Thank you very much. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Chris Webber. Chris.
Thank you. Well, good morning. It's great to be here. My name is Chris Webber. I run Microsoft's mobile device sales. I've been at Microsoft now for 6 weeks, so maybe a little bit unfair that I'm here to describe the Microsoft mobile device strategy. In fairness, maybe that's not fair to you or to me, but in fairness, I was at Nokia the past 3.5 years running our global sales and marketing group, and before that I was at Microsoft for 16 years. So maybe that helps a little bit. But I really want to take and go through the strategy that Microsoft has around mobility, but maybe from a personal perspective. Because as I come into the company, I have an opportunity to sort of relearn Microsoft from a different perspective. So we'll talk about the strategy and maybe put my perspective on it from my previous years at Microsoft, which most of it was with you and enterprise customers. I ran the enterprise business for the US for Microsoft before I joined Nokia. But now coming from Nokia, which is more a consumer-oriented company, hopefully I can meld those two and give you a view of the strategy at Microsoft in terms of mobility. So I think the first thing is, the change that we see in the industry today, I think the pace of change is greater than we've ever seen before in terms of the things that are happening. I would say that transformation is the same at Microsoft. The things that Microsoft is undergoing to transform itself and really look, for the next 10 to 15 years, how we innovate on behalf of the industry. A lot of transformation happening. I think if you look back, let's just call it 10 to 15 years, and what's happened from then, you talk about the PC industry and you look at the, let's call it in the 2000 time frame, having 1 billion plus PCs connected around the world. We've seen an explosion of devices since then. Take smartphones and tablets, from 2000 on, the explosion of those to where you get to like 2008. And there was a moment in time here in 2008 where the number of connected devices exceeded the number of humans on the planet. And I think we're just starting the growth phase of this, or what I'll call hyper-growth, because if you look at the predictions over the next 10 to 15 years, it calls for the number of connected devices and form factors and those type things. I've seen estimates from 50 billion to the trillion number of devices here. So we're really just starting with the number of devices and form factors that will be connected in the world moving forward. If you look at that, so obviously we have more users, we have more devices, more applications, and I think it's very much what Dave talked about is this, I'll call it big data challenge or opportunity that we have. But certainly, how do you harness the power of that and the things that are there to drive new business value on behalf of your company or consumers? It really takes an infrastructure in the cloud to do that. And so I really think this is an opportunity to harness the vast amounts of data that's out there using this cloud infrastructure. Microsoft's strategy overall on this is really, and you've heard this earlier, is mobile first and cloud first. And it's really a symbiotic relationship between the mobility or the client side, because without that cloud infrastructure, those devices are really just an island by itself and somewhat contained. When you connect that to the cloud, and you say the same with the cloud, if the cloud existed by itself without the connected devices, it's somewhat on an island. So it's a very symbiotic relationship. And so we really believe in this cloud-first, mobile-first world. I think key on this one is this isn't just a Microsoft mobile world. And I think you're seeing that in the new, I'll call it transformation of Microsoft, is this is a cross-platform strategy. So it's not just an look, I'll talk about the first-party devices, and that's what I represent. But from a company perspective, you see cross-platform. If there's anything I'd want to emphasize, and you'll talk about it, whether that's the management of devices, security, applications, the support of it in the cloud infrastructure, it is cross-platform. And I don't think you have to look any further than the recent announcement that Microsoft made with Microsoft Office on the iPad. It's the #1 app in the marketplace now for the iPad. I think this is a different Microsoft in terms of supporting this cross-platform world in this cloud-first, mobile-first world. Okay. This is probably the simplest slide that I have, but it's my favorite one. And as I think about coming into Microsoft, I say, what's unique in terms of our mobility strategy versus the other companies that are out there? And I think this is really Microsoft's heritage. And it's the fact that we really look after these three constituencies: the IT pros, the developers, and the users. Again, our heritage has really been how do we build the infrastructure and support and management and security to support IT professionals, at the same time making sure we have the development tools, languages, et cetera, for applications. And then from an end user perspective, I think two things. Obviously, productivity has been our heritage, but also I think we have to think about the consumer side, because even as you saw in John's talk, a lot of the work and I'll call it digital work and digital life crosses. And I think Microsoft has unique ability and capability in this, in that they both focus on the consumer and the end user from a work perspective, from a productivity perspective. That's been the heritage of Microsoft, and I think you'll see that continue moving forward as we look at this thing called the modern workplace. And you can see the number of pillars here. I don't think any of these things in terms of what makes up a modern workplace, whether it's the dynamic nature of it, the explosion of devices, analytics, really being able to take this big data and turn it into insights, and then compliance and controls. I think the challenge, and you heard this from John, is how many organizations are prepared to really drive this modern workplace and take advantage of mobility in the enterprise. And I think we see some, I'll call it immaturity in this one in terms of people being ready from a systems perspective, platform, and cultural aspect to take advantage of this. And you can see some of this data here. I mean, I think some of the ones that are quite interesting to me are this number. This is probably more of a U.S. statement on the 10,000 new federal and industry regulations created just in the last 5 years. These are issues we're going to have to deal with. Compliance. This one sort of shocked me in terms of 93% of employees admit to violating some type of compliance policy in there. I think what it really says is this is opportunity for us to take advantage of and really drive the modern workforce in a way that we haven't done before. In terms of the Microsoft strategy, I think there's 5 pillars that I'll talk about in terms of what makes our value proposition unique, which is around office productivity, the application environment, really being able to create a platform and tools to be able to build applications. I think the security and management piece I'll talk about, and then obviously having right devices. And I'll talk both about third-party devices as well as first-party devices that Microsoft's doing. But I think as John also talked, it's really underpinned by this always-on connectivity, and I would emphasize the value of things like 4G connectivity. I think this is really important as we look at this overall strategy that we would use with our partners. So the first pillar is this productivity. From my personal perspective, I think this one is really important. And I think sometimes we take this for granted and say, yes, we get the productivity piece. Let me give you an example of where I came from Nokia to Microsoft. And I've been here about 6 weeks. I will tell you, I don't know what the percentage is, I'll give you, I think I'm 20% more productive in the Microsoft infrastructure and productivity infrastructure than what we had at Nokia. And that's not to ding the Nokia IT people. But the advanced capabilities that Microsoft has, and I'll give you some very clear examples. Just both of our companies, Nokia and Microsoft, use Office 365. I will tell you Microsoft's on the latest versions, where we were behind a little bit at Nokia. The capability that I have within Office 365 within Microsoft is substantially different, and it has a huge benefit on me. The second one is data analytics, which I use quite a bit. We used at Nokia, we had a competitive platform. I won't mention the competitor. Here we're using the BI analytics and the SQL analytics that you heard about earlier. I will tell you the ability to take that big data and get insight, whether I'm online or offline, is 10x what I had in my previous experience. So I think this productivity story, it matters. And I'm a prime example of seeing where I think we had less than a modern infrastructure around productivity at my previous employer. And at Microsoft, it's been substantially upgraded. It has a real benefit on me personally there. And so I think this really matters when you think about productivity. This concept of universal apps, I think, is important in terms of the ability to write an app and have it run across multiple form factors, whether that's your phone, your tablet, your PC, and you could even put something like Xbox on the TV there. And we're really focused on this one, which is allowing a developer to build that and run it everywhere. So same programming tools, same security models, same management tools, etc. This is having a real impact. As an example, just on the Windows Phone platform, we have about 255,000 apps in the marketplace. So we've exponentially increased the number of apps. I think if you look up all Windows, what I call big Windows and Windows Phone, it's over 400,000 apps in the marketplace. But what we're seeing here is big applications taking advantage of this. We just announced, I believe it was last week, Salesforce.com, who is going to be writing an app and using this universal app infrastructure to build this app for phone, PC, tablet, etc. I think very important here. Barclays, who I believe is here today and might be on a panel later, they've built an amazing app using this infrastructure. It's one of the best rated or highest rated apps we have in the Windows marketplace. It's 5 stars. And you can compare it to its competitor in the competitor marketplaces. It's one of the highest rated apps we have in the marketplace. But this is a really important area for us to enable, because if we can take and give a developer more access using the same amount of time, I think that's a direct benefit for the developer and company involved there. On the device management, what we're really focused on here, and I will stress again, this is cross-platform. This isn't just about Windows devices, and I think this is the new Microsoft here, is I think historically what you've seen is PC management and mobile management as separate functions and separate tool sets. And what we're really trying to do is bring that together into one common set of tools and allow you to manage that across a common infrastructure there. Again, first party, when I say first party, Windows devices, whether that's third party or the devices we're doing at Microsoft directly, but also competing ecosystems. It's really important that we're providing a holistic solution there. Same thing with security. And what I would talk about here is from a management and security perspective, when you look at Windows 8.1 and then Windows Phone 8.1, a lot of the work that's been put in, and we're going to show you a demo in a little bit, is really about improving the management capabilities and security capabilities of the platform, which I think help all of us. And it's something certainly you've been asking for in the platform. And then in terms of just customers adopting Windows Phone, we just released our first products, the Lumia 630, which is the first one that runs Windows Phone 8.1. These are some of the companies in UK. What I will tell you, and these are our early adopters, so these are companies that have been brought on board even before we had the product released. What I would tell you here is the number of companies that have expressed interest or are evaluating or piloting, particularly with customers who are BlackBerry install base today, has gone up exponentially. And I think because there was a lot of things that we put in 8.1 around the security management that you were looking for. And I think with that now, we have a really compelling story around management security, the productivity, et cetera. I think this is a beginning list to see some of the companies that are moving in our direction. But I will tell you just the interest level, the momentum, the number of opportunities that we're pursuing in this area have gone up exponentially with the release of 8.1. I want to highlight one case study here, which is Delta Airlines in the US, which looked at a number of different competing platforms. They looked at both the tablet side of things for their pilots as well as their flight attendants for in-air service, and chose Surface for their pilots to use for logbooks, their pilot books, et cetera. And then for in-air service, using the Lumia 820, and they're also looking at some of our newer devices like the 1520. We'll have over 20,000 of those devices running our platform in the application here. And I think we have a little case study video that talks about what they're doing with the technology.
One of the things that is most important to me is how well we take care of our passengers. It's getting our customers where they want to go, when they want to be there, and always doing it safely.
At Delta, we fly more than 165 million customers a year on 3,500 daily flights to more than 60 countries around the world. We're connecting people to businesses, their families, and their friends. We continue to look for new opportunities to improve the travel experience for our customers and our 80,000 employees. That's why we partnered with Microsoft to develop technology innovations, the Fly Delta mobile app, Surface tablets in the cockpit, and Windows phones in the hands of our flight attendants for easy in-flight transactions.
Our old 38-pound flight bags have been replaced with Microsoft Surface devices. This allows pilots to better manage their flight by eliminating the need for paper charts, documents, and reference materials.
Reducing that 38 pounds really gets us a fuel savings of 1.2 million gallons of fuel per year. About 2,300 cars will not be driving because we're using the Surface tablet. Now that doesn't even include about 900 trees a year for all the paper we've been using to print all of our manuals.
Customers are at the center of our focus. My colleagues and I strive to ensure that our customers have a safe, comfortable, and enjoyable flight. With Windows phones and Microsoft Dynamics, we're able to process payments quickly, even while cruising at 500 miles per hour at 30,000 feet, a convenience that our passengers truly enjoy.
Our innovative use of technology and integration of Microsoft products into our fleet provides the personal service our customers expect and helps assure they can make it to their most important commitments, whether that be business, family, or friends.
We have a lot more on the way as well. As I talked about, I think a lot of momentum in this, particularly with the 8.1 release, which addresses a number of the issues that you've asked for around security and management. I want to highlight a little bit, this is the job I do, which is sell devices for Microsoft. And so I want to highlight a little bit of this, and then we're going to do a demo. But on some of the devices, I'll show you some of the ones that we have just announced and released. This is the Lumia 630. This is the first Windows 8.1 device. It's one of the most affordable smartphones on the Windows Phone platform, quad core, 4.5-inch screen, has Cortana, which you'll see a demo, et cetera. Really excited about the opportunity that this device can play. This replaces the Lumia 520, which, by the way, is the #1 selling smartphone in its price category globally. So we've had a lot of success with this. We're really excited about this one. 8.1, I won't steal the demo thunder there, but a lot of really good things there. I've talked about the management, security, those type things, but also from an end user attractiveness, a lot of really good things in here. I'll tell you, my teenagers, I have a 14 and 16-year-old, and they basically call this the real iPhone 5C at a really attractive price point. Again, really beautiful device, and you'll see some of the demos on that. This is our high-end flagship, the Lumia 930. I think this is the best flagship we've ever come out with. Again, 5-inch high-definition screen. It has a 20-megapixel optic image stabilization camera, so one of the best cameras on the market. There's 4 directional mics in here, so from video recording, it's the best recording of any smartphone on the market. Has wireless charging built into it. In the UK, when we launch this, you'll see wireless charging automatically packaged in. So not only you get the wireless charging, but you get the charging pad itself. So really excited about this phone that we're going to be launching quite soon in the marketplace. And then on the, where am I at here? From a hardware perspective, I think there's a couple things on third party. Certainly small Windows tablet here, the Lenovo ThinkPad really has done well in the marketplace in terms of form factor. And then one of my favorites here is the Yoga, which is sort of the tablet, laptop, and you can twist it any which way you want to in terms of dimensions here, but a really great device for Windows 8.1. And then probably the one that I'm most excited about, and you could say, well, hey, you're the Microsoft guy, you're supposed to be excited about that, but it's the one that Michelle talked about, is the Surface Pro 3. I actually think this device is one of the most innovative devices in the last 10 years. I've been using it for about 3 months, the prototype on it. And I will tell you, I was a Windows laptop user, so I used an Acer Aspire S7, and I had an iPad. And I was a big iPad user. This device has eliminated me carrying 2 devices now, and so it's consolidated in one. So as Michelle talked about, it's a great tablet. It's as powerful as any laptop on the marketplace today, so you get great laptop in a very thin form factor. Obviously, then you get the tablet when you take off the snappable keyboard. And then a couple other things is the pen that Michelle talked about is phenomenal. And again, from a note-taking perspective, I used to bring paper and pencil. In fact, it wasn't paper and pencil. I used to use LiveScribe, which is a digital pen and paper. This has totally replaced that because the ability to click, get notes, put it in the cloud really has changed things. And then the other thing that this comes with is the kickstand, but you can have any dimension of the kickstand you want. So on the Surface 2, you had 2 different viewing angles. Here, you can put it at any angle you want. I really believe this is incredibly innovative. Can't wait for us to get it out in the market and for you to try it. But from my personal perspective over the last 3 months, it's the first device that has consolidated my ability to, instead of carrying a tablet and a laptop, carry a single device here. So very excited about what we're doing in the Surface product line. Okay. All right, so I'm almost out of time here. We saw yesterday, we did a town hall here with I'll call them the Nokia people coming in and the Microsoft team. And there's a gentleman named Brett Siddons who did a demo of really the ability across Windows Phone, tablet, PC, and Xbox. And I thought I really was able to sell the value proposition until I saw this demo, and he showed some things I had not seen before. So I said, hey, I'll hurry up in my slides. I think it would be very interesting for the customers to see this. Some of it is, I'll call it the productivity and enterprise stuff that we put into the platform, and some of it's the attractiveness for the end consumer. But I thought it'd be worthwhile for Brett to come up and show you some of the neat things that are in the product, both from a productivity perspective as well as end consumer. So with that, please welcome Brett Siddons.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Let me just plug my phone in. Get it on. Always the way at the start of tech. Okay, let me restart the phone. And we'll go again in a moment. So I could do an intro anyway on this while I restart this phone. So essentially, we all have tons of devices now, obviously both in consumer world and in business world. And more often than not now, we are using the same devices. I know at home I just have, I don't know how many devices I do have, but the fact is that we just want them all to work. And that's what's the thing is really interesting for me. And what we're doing is essentially, we have a great range of devices, but it's what's happening behind the scenes in the cloud with Microsoft that is really, really compelling. So what I want to show you, we're going to go through a number of scenarios that all exist today. If this phone switches on. Here we go. Let's just plug this in. And we are on. Good. Whew. That would have been a bad demo otherwise. Okay. So we're going to talk around the phone. We will talk around a Surface Pro that I have here. And we will touch on Xbox. I've taken a lot of the stuff of Xbox out of it. But again, these are all the scenarios that exist today. The first thing is we want all of these things just to happen for us. And for me, that all starts with OneDrive. And really the Microsoft account. And I do apologise, I'm going to have my back turned to you for most of this demo, and I'll try not to get in the way of the screens, but I'm sure that will happen as well. The easiest way for us to talk about that is with sync settings. So if I go into that, this is just stuff that happens. Everybody has the option to turn on or off any of these settings. And it means, again, that all of our devices will just talk to each other. That can be the start screen, how it looks and feels, and also updates that we've done on that over on the phone side mean that now when you upgrade your Windows phone, you just sign in with your Microsoft account, same on any tablet, and it will just automatically populate onto your device. You don't have to do anything. You'll get exactly the same experience that you've built up over time. That wasn't the case even a year or so ago. You'd go, which device have I done that on? It's completely different to this one. It was an absolute nightmare to manage. The apps list that you have can be installed automatically onto any device. And then more importantly, it's all that really annoying stuff like the web browsers, the favorites that you have, the tabs, passwords that you've put into those websites. They can automatically be populated across any device that you access. The list goes on. But if we go over to here and sort of show this visually, nice. We are on the right date and time, aren't we? Yeah, good. Is on your start screens. So this is again how phone and tablet and PCs are starting to come together. So if I go into settings in here and we just change the start screen, if I wanted a different accent color in here, again, we have the ability to have all of our devices talking together. So our next device will then just change over, as will any of my others that I may have at home with me as well. So we'll talk about 8.1. We've had loads of announcements on 8.1 for phone, the 8.1 updates on Windows as well. We've essentially been listening to consumers and, of course, businesses. The amount of stuff that we've done there is just incredible. But if I take you through a couple of things that we have changed, one big thing to ask for is the Action Center. So the Action Center means, while we do have live tiles, that means you can just see the information served to you without going in and out of apps. You can now see everything in one place. All of the information that you have around your emails, apps, social feeds, etc., sits there. Of course, personalization goes one step further. That was an ask from the phones, is yes, I can make it mine, but how do we bring more life to the start screen? So, again, back in the starts and themes, you can see now we have the option for choosing picture. So if I go in there and we go to save pictures, I take a picture of my kids, and we'll put that in there, and we go back to the start screen, you'll see now how that completely customizes the experience for me on the phone. We also have changed completely the calendar view. The calendar now is much more easy to navigate. By pressing on the date, you're able to see, let me just go back on there. You're able to see all of your appointments easily. If I go into my budget planning meeting in here, I'm sure many of us, not that we'd want to admit it, but you've probably been traveling in the car, you've got a conference call to get onto, you have all of these dial-in details and conference IDs that you need to try and note down, and it's just impossible. We've built Link directly into the calendar now, so you can simply press Join Meeting. Join Meeting will take you into that Link meeting. As soon as you're in there, which again, the restart, you jump in. Obviously, I'm glad that no one else is in there at the moment. We would be able to go in, yeah, we can, to video call. If we needed to go onto a video conference, that would use the front-facing camera on the phone. Plus, you'd get loads of other options in here as well, as being able to invite others, send emails, of course, message as well. We'll just leave this conference for the moment. So collaboration is the heart of really everything that we do. We've talked about OneDrive. For me, as a consumer, the way that I also want to manage my life is in the People Hub. So the People Hub has started to change around as well. Yes, I have the feeds from Facebook, from Twitter, from LinkedIn. But what I also use in here is rooms. So I have a room here for myself and my wife. We can manage basically our lives. And it also means that I don't get in trouble when I agree with my mates that I want to meet them down at the pub on a weekend. So we have notes in here. We will have chat. We have calendar. We have photographs that only maybe we want to put. We don't want to put it straight onto social networks. And we have OneNote. OneNote is an amazing tool. So within this one, we're putting in details around a trip that we want to go on. But over on another device, I should show you Smart Search. So Smart Search in here gives us the ability, powered through Bing, to not just search the web now. I want to search everything, for it, whether it's the apps that I have, whether it is the internet, maps that I want to look at. It will serve up all the information that it thinks is relevant for me. You'll see photographs in here as well. That will be based either on folder name, it'll be based on visuals, recognition, or even text within those photographs. But you'll also see that we have a OneNote document. So within this, we have 3D mapping. So obviously, Nokia have an amazing heritage in maps. Also, we have Bing Maps. We're now collaborating here to go to really the next level. With these PPI, perceptive pixel screens from Microsoft, it gives us the ability to start to, one, look at the map, so where I'm going to go on my holiday. But now, we can render this up into 3D. That means that, and I apologize for those over there that can't see this, we can move this around. Let's see if we can go in closer. There we go. So that's the hotel that I'm going to be staying at. There's my room just up there. So next, let's go over to Office. Now, Office on the phone, completely integrated, completely embedded in the OS, which means, and I'm sure we've all had it before, someone sent us a document, you can't find it, where did I get it? Was it on email? Was it still sitting on the share? Was it on my desktop? Within phone, because it's embedded, you can essentially get to it, whether it was on the phone, whether it was in email, you can find it straight away. So any opened attachments that you've had in email will automatically sit here. I have probably 1,000 odd emails that otherwise I'd have to trawl through. We obviously have personal OneDrive, and we have OneDrive for business for Microsoft. You're also able to get access to all of the documents that you have opened over any period of time. That could range to even older. So if we went 3 weeks ago, I have the list of all the stuff here to be able to get to immediately. But let me go into OneDrive for business. So if we open it on here, so I think a common scenario for all of us, let me just jump back, is we have a PowerPoint that we've been working on. Now, I've shared that out. I wanted someone else to be able to take a look at it. They have only got their phone with them, but they can open Office on the phone. So there, obviously, you would be able to see all of the notes, but you are able to edit the PowerPoint as well. So I could change, and in fact, let's drop back from here. Let's scroll over a couple of pages. So in here, I noticed we're calling it Windows Phone Blue. That was obviously our code name. We don't want to talk that publicly. So let's put in 8.1 into there. And delete that. Oh, did I say 3181? Nice. We'll leave it at that. You'll see that I can't be fudging this demo in any way. And we could also move slides or hide slides as well, simply just by dragging them around. So let's go with that, and then back out. So it asks me if I want to save. That saves it back to the cloud. And then I'm getting ready for my presentation. So over here, we click this from OneDrive for Business, and it will open up. While that does so, let's go back to the start screen here. So another thing you'll see, it's completely changed around. We have our now Windows Phone 3181, which is nice. And in Office Remote, another feature that we have on the phone, we simply turn this on in here. And that means, because I am about to present to a nice audience, so I pick up my phone, and we go into Office Remote app. And that gives us the ability to be able to essentially select what's on screen on my PC. And now I have my presenter mouse, where I'll be able to see the slides that I have. We'll be able to click through. I get all of my notes in here as well. but I'd also be able to use a laser pen as well to be able to talk to the presentation. So lots and lots of cool stuff going on there in Office. So the next thing that I want to talk to is, and this is where we get the Xbox involved in this. So if we go over to Smart Glass. Smart Glass exists on any device. And it essentially now means that you don't need any more remotes. So you're able to watch live TV through the Xbox as well, obviously movies, music, etc. But the one thing that I want to show on here is the ability to, one, use any device as to actually control the Xbox as we move through, but also what we then can do in terms of Internet Explorer. So say I had it on my PC. We now want to look at it on my nice big screen in the TV, in the lounge. So we go over to here. I can just about see the screen. And we type in BBC Football. So now I'm doing a search in here. Let's just click on the main one. Now I can use the touch interface to be able to go up and down on this screen. But you'll see also that I have it on the phone. And again, I could do it exactly the same. So we'd hit the remote. But you'll notice an Xbox icon down here. So my wife has come into the room. So reading up on the football results again. I want to watch a movie, please. So I can simply hit this button. That will pull the content off of the Xbox over onto my phone so I can continue to look whatever that I was. Let's just go back to home again on here. So the next thing I want to talk about is Smart Glass. So, sorry, not Smart Glass, it's Cortana. Now, most of you will have hopefully heard of Cortana. It's, again, been driven by all of the Bing technologies that we have, and it is the first truly personal assistant on any device. Obviously, there's Siri, there is Google Now. The huge differences for us with Cortana is that it will be able to, one, search the web, so it is web-based, but it will also be able to search across your device. So any email client will work on that. It works, and it will be able to search through apps. And more importantly, yes, it can do location-based searches, but people as well. So it pulls everything together for both your personal life and for business. It's incredibly compelling. It will be able to organize all of the meetings that you have, tell you when you need to leave in order to be able to get to your next meeting in time. And let's just jump into it so that I can show you a little bit of how it pulls all this stuff together. So first thing in the morning, Cortana will build a profile for me for the day. I'll be able to look at that as a glance. It will give me all the latest news that I would want to read. It will tell me when my first appointments are, tells me what the weather's like, etc. But if we go into the notebook, and this is, again, where it really differs from what we have from the competition. If you get that going, I need that in probably 1 minute. You have a notebook. So, yes, Cortana can start to build profiles on there. You'll see that within things like Places. So you can edit Cortana. You can see what it is building, the profile that's building up on you. You can edit that down. You can put new things in there as well. But it will also start to look at the places that you are. So, for instance, for home, it saw that I'd been sleeping in a certain location most nights. So it said, is this your home? Now, that can get you in trouble. So just be careful, but you can edit it. And of course, work. Yeah, it sees that I work in Reading. It also starts to make notes of all the things, places that I've been, or maybe websites or meetings that I've had. So it makes everything much more useful for you. You'll see in here we have interests, so you can start to build up your interests so you can have the news served to you that you want. We then also have quiet hours. So in quiet hours, great tool, especially with most of us now have the same device across business and personal life. You can turn that on. Once you turn it on, you can allow people to be able to break through. So if there's an emergency, or if mostly your boss knows, then they know to just call twice in a couple of minutes, and they'll be able to break through that inner circle. And you can obviously edit the inner circle, so there's certain people that can still get through. Then we have reminders. Reminders have been so useful to me. I said location-based reminders, people-based reminders. It is actually made my relationship even better. As you'll see from the reminder that I've had in here, for the first time, I've started to tell my wife that I actually noticed that she's had her hair cut. And she's really impressed with that. So let's just do a reminder in here and how Cortana works. So the next time I talk to my boss, remind me to ask for a pay rise.
Next time you talk to Leila Martin, I'll remind you to ask for a pay rise. Is that right?
Yes. So now I've got it in there as the reminder. I'm going to be reminded the next time I talk to my boss. So if I go into my email and I type up here Leila Martin, you'll see straight away that I get a reminder. Now, we say complete. What I should show you in here is also word flow. So we've increased the capabilities of an already great text system that we had. And I could write in here, so let's do it on this. So when is my end of year review? You will see there that I'm simply swiping across the keyboard. And it's so incredibly fast and intuitive. You don't need to be accurate at all. And in fact, I'm starting to use my phone as my primary device to be able to send most of my messages now. So let's just send that. That's my softly approach to the pay rise piece. Lastly, talk just about pictures. Obviously, we have a huge heritage. Let me take one photograph as we're in here. Huge heritage from Nokia, the Carl Zeiss lenses that they have, amazing photography capabilities on all of our devices. But essentially, what we now have is the ability to be able to share these. Now, you'll see the sharing options are quite incredible on our phone. You'll be able to share it, whether it's through Bluetooth. We now have new apps that allow you to actually flick your pictures from one device to another, obviously straight into OneNote or into your email. But the reality is when you take a photograph, it can also automatically lift up into OneDrive so that you don't, if you lost your phone, you don't lose the stuff that you actually have and care about. Also, on here, if we just go back and let me go into Smart Glass in there. So if we went into OneDrive in here and we went to Pictures, Camera Roll, you'll see that we start to serve up, and there's the picture now that I've just taken, automatically available in the cloud. If I also go to OneDrive now on the Xbox, oh, I need to stand in front of it. Please, yeah. There we go. Recognised me. It's obviously thought that you were trying to control it, and it said, you're not Brett Siddons. So if we go into albums, I do like to use my personal account, so please, any pictures that come up, please don't hold me accountable. So as we go in to Camera Roll in here, you'll see again all of those pictures. We can play a slideshow on the TV. We've got friends around. And then, if I want some music to that, I can say, Xbox, snap music. Now we have music that is all playing to my slideshow. We have all of the pictures that I've just been taking around the room, plus the one that I've just done, and it's all instant. It's all in the cloud, and it's all powered by our services to make it a seamless experience, both for consumers and for business. So with that, I think I'll invite Chris back up on stage, and thank you very much.
Good stuff, huh? Yeah, every time I watch Brett's demo, I learn, so I have some brushing up to do. So I really appreciate the opportunity to present our mobility strategy. Hopefully you see it's very comprehensive, from the infrastructure to the applications, security management, and obviously then great devices and user experiences for the consumers. We hope you give us an opportunity to earn your business, and look forward to talking with you further. We're now going to do a customer panel, so I'll invite up John Jester and have him lead that panel. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. Welcome back to Microsoft. It's great to have you back in the family. So I'm John Jester. I manage the enterprise business for Microsoft in the UK. And the next session we have is a customer panel. So we just got to see a fantastic demo, Xbox, the phone, the PC all working together. Now you're going to hear from some of our customers who are actually making this work in their business and driving real impact. So I'd like to invite the panel up. Come on up on stage. We have Peter Scott. He's the CIO of British Telecom. We have Ian Bell, Cambridgeshire CIO. We have Paul Russell from Ricoh. We have Jason Betteridge. He's the MD of one of our partners building apps on the phone with Rigian. And then Darren Folds from Barclays, who leads the Mobility and Ping It application. So, gentlemen, thanks for coming up. And I guess I'm going to start off with a little bit of a curveball we got from John's presentation talking about bring your own devices. So I think 2 or 3 years ago, I know when I was doing my planning, I think when all of you were doing your planning, we thought, you know, half, 2/3, or all customers would have moved to a bring your own device model. And we've seen the data that shows about 1/3 of customers have actually moved to bring your own device. So I'd actually like to go across the panel, hear from you. What's going on in your respective companies? Are you doing bring your own device? Are you still doing corporate deployed devices? And maybe your insight as to why that curve is slower than we anticipated over the past few years. So Peter, I'll start with you.
Yeah, okay. So we do both. We do BYOD and we do our own corporate devices. BYOD we tend to do in the smartphone and tablet space. So we don't do it in the laptop space or the desktop space or anything like that. We've got about 12,000 people who've chosen to do that. So it's quite a lot, but it's like, you know, maybe 10, 15% of the company. And I'd say it's a choice. So some people choose to do it, some people choose not to. It tends to always be a supplementary device. So it's not the primary device, it tends to be supplementary.
Okay, that's interesting. So supplementary, bring your own. Your core device is going to be provided by IT.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Ian, what are you doing?
Core devices for us are provided by IT. I think, you know, our space is a little bit different to probably most of these guys, maybe not Barclays, but from a laws and guidance and advice principles in a local government space, bring your own is still somewhat of the devil. We're seen as one of those who try to push some boundaries, and we've been there and we've touched on it with 300-400 users before, just with sandboxed apps, email, calendar, and various bits. And we've taken that facility away. We're now beginning to look at use cases, but it's still a tough place for us to go. Clearly, more and more. In that MDM space, some of those options with phone are becoming more viable for us to look at, but you know, still bring your own is still a lesser option for us currently.
Okay, and it's interesting, we were talking at breakfast, you know, obviously your core employees, that's going to be pretty strict, pretty regulated, but you have a lot of volunteers who come in, right? And they're not necessarily employees, but they may need access to information, data as part of, you know, how they serve the communities. Hey, can you talk a little bit about that?
There are some guys who are absolutely out there standing up saying, you know, gimme, I want corporate solutions on our devices. There are people out there who've clearly been out, chosen their device, paid for it, and have some reluctance around that point. And our points for us are an encouragement of beginning to get them to understand the security perspective from us, importantly, that we can have that separation between corporate and personal devices in that world. And we'll begin to push on that, but the mobile journey for us is still pushing hard, and we need to get that into our business first and get that culture beginning to change, and then we'll have a look at the volunteer points as well.
Okay, so some good insights. Paul, Ricoh, what's the status there?
Yeah, very similar to these gentlemen in terms of the corporate device being our standard. We made a move from a BlackBerry infrastructure recently. We went to Nokia and Windows 8, and now soon to be in Windows 8.1. And that was very much around four core principles for us that are driving our strategy, which is how do we manage these devices, how are they available, how do they perform, and how they're secure. So that is a sort of journey we're going on in terms of how do we manage mobile devices. The key driver for us is actually not about the device, but it's about the persona of the user. So, you know, for an organization of our size, a lot of people move around our buildings a lot. And our clients move around buildings as well and use our products. So the persona of how people move around is really interesting to us. We think that will then drive what we do around ultimately whether people bring their own or they use a corporate device.
Yeah, okay, it's good insight there. And Darren, Barclays, what's the status of bring your own device there? Obviously a highly regulated industry.
Absolutely. We have to say we do pretty much the same. Bring your own device for us. We've got about 80,000 unique devices, 30,000 people. 65% in the UK. So it is taking off in Barclays, and it's a core part of our strategy. It is around customer choice at the moment. What we find actually that a lot of customers and colleagues actually really like the ability to use the secure access to their email, the calendars and so forth, along with the social media. And we've got a massive push on digital within Barclays. And so actually kind of enabling them to choose which device they want to use and actually enable that through one device is kind of core to that strategy.
Okay, interesting. And Jason, given you're at a partner, you work with a lot of different enterprise customers, do you have kind of a view of what you're seeing, maybe how it compares to the
what we find is when customers come to us to build an application for a mobile device, it's usually for a specific line of business need. So what tends to happen is a customer wants to choose one platform and not have to build that application many times on different platforms. What we're definitely finding is the ability to build on 8.1 and deploy to mobile and device and desktop in one go is becoming more and more attractive. A lot of customers that also engage with us are also heavily Microsoft invested and like the fact they've got one single platform, integrated platform across the board. So we don't find it too much in that.
Yeah, good. It's a good insight. So, John, this very much matches your survey data and some of the information you've put together. And it was interesting, some of the themes came across. We didn't double check this in advance, so good thing it worked out. But I think also when you think about the consumer side and the enterprise side and how those things come together, the way Dave spoke about it this morning, you see that's actually impacting BYOD and impacting some of these other decisions. So, yeah, thank you for that insight. So, Peter, thinking about BT and how you're leveraging mobility to drive your strategy, one of the things that's been really interesting working with you and your team is you're using Windows Phone and you're also using Windows 8 in certain scenarios. Could you talk a little bit about the convergence there? How does that support your business, that ecosystem? And everyone got to see a little bit of a demo of that from Brett earlier with the phone, the tablet, the PC connecting. I don't believe we've got the Xbox in at BT, but maybe that's a new opportunity for us going forward.
Okay. Yeah. So I think broadly, everybody's used to their laptops. They're used to their PCs, and they're used to working with Office. They're used to working with products like SharePoint and Lync and those sorts of technologies. So being able to give them, put into their hands a device that seamlessly operates with all that seamlessly opens Excel documents, allows you to edit them, seamlessly opens PowerPoint presentations and actually renders them correctly rather than some other rendering, that we're all used to if you've used a lot of the other types of devices about. That goes down really, really well. And I think touching on, what was said earlier about, a lot of the power of this stuff comes when you actually start to put apps on these devices, right? The device is sort of a hygiene point. You need something that works, it's fast, it gets connected, we can secure it in IT. But, the business benefit starts to come with the apps that you put on there. And one of the things we really like about Windows Phone and Windows PC is that we can now start to develop these universal apps where we develop the app once and it can run on both platforms, right? Otherwise, it starts to get really expensive for us to start developing for every single different platform a separate application. So, yeah, that stuff's working out well for us.
No, that's good. That's good insight. And, Chris had spoke about being at Nokia and then coming into Microsoft about 6 weeks ago and saying, hey, he almost feels like he's 20% more productive. And we see that similar feedback from customers as we work closely with them and bring the cloud and we bring mobility together. You start to get those high productivity scenarios where you've got access to your information wherever you are, be it on a phone, be it on a tablet or a PC. And that's an exciting scenario that's starting to happen. Ian, can you tell me a little bit more about Cambridge Fair and what you're doing with Windows Phone?
So the combined platform is the power again. And, the universal apps piece. We're working with Black Marble as one of our key partners around delivering new touch-friendly applications where our frontline cops can start to get the power of the rich information that we hold as an organisation and how that become more efficient and interactive with them where they are. So that lots and lots of work going on around geo and the security that ties into that, so they can get real influence from the whole of the information base that sits around them at the touch of a button. We're working hard with them to begin to understand not only about their role, but the devices that fit their role. Importantly, these devices have to work at 3 a.m. in the pouring rain. They have to work at noon in bright sunshine. And with Windows Phone, we've finally found a platform where we can begin to execute some of that, begin to meet their needs, and actually for them, start to bring them into the 21st century and give them the device that looks pretty decent, pretty new and up to date, and not just a device that gets thrown in a bag and is looked at on occasion.
And no, that's good. That's good insight. And I think what keeps coming up over and over is when we think about what the mobility strategy is for an enterprise, it's not just about the device, it's not just about the phone, it's what you just talked about. You've got big data, tremendous amount of information, making that accessible to your team on a device anywhere they are. I mean, it's productivity, I mean, it's safety, and other even more important things in your business.
Yeah, the safety one is key. So that whole piece about what's going on around them, and importantly, who's around them to support them at the same point as well. So,
Yeah, so just
cluster of information.
It really comes together. You've got to bring that whole platform together, the big data, the right applications, and then the anywhere access to that information. So, Paul, at Ricoh, I know you've had a big deployment around Windows Phone, about 8,000 devices. I'd like you to kind of share with the audience, how's that experience been for you as leading IT from a security, manageability standpoint? And then, of course, I think it's always fascinating, what's the employee reaction been, right? As you specified these devices and provided them.
Okay, so for Ricoh, the decision was really tied on how do we exploit what we already have. So we had a license arrangement with Microsoft. How do we exploit what we've already spent our money on? Because that's always the challenge, is how do you get most from what you've already spent. So that was a real driver for us to actually go to any other direction. Let's just take advantage of that situation. But also tied into the fact that we're a productivity company. We've been doing this for decades through what our devices do, and actually empowering our workers to be more productive during their day would actually then drive their productivity with our clients. So actually it was a great marriage and a great alignment, both in terms of empowering our staff to work with our customers around how a device makes people more productive. And the Microsoft Windows Phone stack and all the elements that brings allows us to take our journey from effectively being an analog company many, many moons ago, where paper was paper, moving that into digital content, and actually then using the plethora of devices that Microsoft give to actually consume that content in a very secure way that supports the way people move around businesses. So that sort of value proposition story for us allows us to do the freedom to operate and gives our staff that confidence that they've actually got a platform that allows them to be more productive. And the idea of just making your day a little bit easier, even if it's a few minutes, because you can pick up print in another smarter way, just is really making a difference. Nothing grand and nothing too dramatic, just something that makes people have a better 60-minute experience every day.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great example. It's just those simple experiences, they add up. The cumulative effect is significant. And Jason, I know you've worked with Ricoh on building an application to support some of those scenarios we just spoke about. Can you talk a little bit about the app you built? And then
so we've built an application called Request Hub, which basically enables you to request existing business intelligence dashboards and reports, existing assets, as it were, that sit within SQL Server, and also documents that sit within SharePoint, and request them directly to the hand, either from a direct download or via email. What we've found from working with Ricoh and many other customers is, although we do talk about 4G and always being on and cloud and all those good things, is it's often the times when you've not got a reliable signal that you actually need just to get to that answer really quick and and get to that accurate information. So we have an ability to be able to request via email, at a dashboard that goes to a line of business applications that we've taken from around Ricoh's business, pulled that into a cloud offering and into a SQL Server, render up a real-time dashboard and email it back to the phone when you've got a data connection. That's basically enabling the people out in the field to get insights such as project performance, resource allocation, utilisation, even just something simple as what holidays have people got available to them, what documents have we got that we're storing against this particular project that's relevant to me. If I'm maybe with a customer and I want to look at an SLA or a contract, I can request that via the phone, either straight to the phone securely or via Exchange or Office 365.
Now, good example of an app. And while I've got you on the hot seat, I'll take advantage of it to ask you, why did you choose Microsoft to develop on? There's iOS, there's Android, there's other platforms. Give us a little bit of insight.
Yeah, I mean, the Microsoft technology platform is our chosen platform across the board from a perspective of being an information management company. But equally now, the ability to build once and deploy multiple applications on different platforms is a real advantage that we see. And also when it comes to integration for us, mobile applications are about how well integrated they are with other business systems. Otherwise, for us, they're just another device to consume email and social. So to play into our skill sets and to play into the investments our customers have made, that's why we chose Microsoft as an end-to-end platform from cloud to SQL to SharePoint to mobile across the board.
Good. No, it's good to hear, and it's I think that platform story and the
it's
ecosystem.
The integration.
Yeah, coming into play again. So Darren, you're looking at this from a little bit different perspective, right? As you're running a business, it's less about the IT side and more about building the right apps to connect with your customers ultimately. And Chris had mentioned earlier about the Barclays application being one of the highest rated apps in the Windows marketplace. I'd like to get your feedback on that application, how it's helping you connect with your customers, and also, to toot your own horn a little bit with respect to why do you think that is so highly rated?
Sure. So I think Barclays started its digital journey approximately about 2.5 years ago, building out mobile banking and also our Ping It on mobile payments application. And I mean, on a simple level, the reason we developed on Windows alongside the other platforms is our customers were asking for it. And Chris alluded to this in terms of the growth, in terms of the connected consumer and the conversations we had earlier. We've found, it took us 10 years to build 4 million digital active customers online. It's taken us 15 months to get 3 million on mobile. And the level of engagement we're driving in those channels, kind of 28 times a month on average, someone will engage for us on mobile. Online, it's about 6 times a month. So the level of engagement and the expectation customers have got around ease of access, simplicity, great customer experience, means that actually that's core to us in terms of the future. It's about putting the bank in the customer's hands, and that's kind of core to our strategy. I think in terms of what we've seen in terms of Windows and the App Store, we've had, I think, beyond our expectations in terms of uptake. So we've seen significant uptake. As I said, the reason we developed it was because effectively we asked our customers for a program called Design for You, what they wanted, and within 3 months we'd had about 50, 60,000 requests for features and development. And the leading one actually was, why can't we have mobile banking on Windows? And so we responded to that and built the Windows app working with Microsoft. Why it gets good ratings? I think actually it comes down to leveraging the native features and really playing to the native strengths of the application and being genuine to the platform and actually making sure you actually deliver a great experience. I know it sounds quite cliche, but I think it's really critical in terms of what we're seeing. And that's why we're proud of having a 5-star app, because I think it's something that we want to kind of protect in terms of the experience we're delivering.
Yeah. No, I think it's a powerful way to engage with your customers, and it's your brand and all those different things in play. And to have an app like that and those ratings is impressive. I know you've got another app that you're getting ready to bring to market in the next month or so. Can you tell everyone a little bit about Ping It business-wise, and then how you're going to support that with the app?
Yeah, sure. So approximately 2 years ago, we started with looking at mobile and looking at mobile payments, and we wanted to start to really simplify how we can make payments simple for customers. We wanted to make it as simple as texting. And we built the application Ping It, initially available across Apple and Android. We've seen significant growth in the use of that platform, not only from a person-to-person perspective, so the ability to send money between individuals, but also businesses and consumer and large corporations. And that the use cases have been growing at a massive rate in terms of adoption in there. So since we launched, we've had about 2.8 million downloads, 500 million pounds of payments sent through the system. So and that's kind of growing at I think a rate of 230% a year. So significant growth. And obviously with the industry development of PayM and putting in the mobile payment rails for the industry, we're going to see that sort of take off leaps and bounds. We're bringing that, based on our experience with mobile banking, we're bringing that onto Windows. We're due to launch at the end of this month. And that will basically replicate the same features that we've got on the other platforms. And we're excited to actually bring that into market and close off our our device journey, really, I suppose, in terms of being available across all platforms.
Thanks, Darren. I think really, really looking forward to the Ping It app coming out. Like to see another 5-star rated app in the store. But while I've got you on the seat there, And this will be the last question for everyone on the panel. Just kind of stepping back, big picture, how do you think mobility is transforming your business? So what do you think the biggest impacts are at Barclays?
So I think I alluded to it before. I think consumers are increasingly expecting you to have a mobile offering. If you take banking generally, the convenience around being able to access my account, see my balance, make payments at a very base level is huge. And I said before, the level of engagement we're going through that channel is significant. But I think increasingly it's about how can we take all of the other services that basically people use in terms of their engagement with us as an institution and actually translate those into great experiences available on the mobile phone. You know, whether that's being able to apply for a loan there and then on your phone to make a purchase, or whether it's being able to notify a customer instantly that actually they need to move some money between accounts to avoid any charges or fees. I think there's a load of services and propositions we can bring that actually really add value to customers' lives. And I think we're seeing a massive journey, not only within Barclays, but within the industry as a whole in terms of really driving on mobile and mobile access to services. And I think that's just going to grow and be, you know, exponential in terms of its growth moving forward.
Yeah, those powerful examples and directly impacting your business, the way it's connecting with customers and changing the way they engage. So Jason, from the partner point of view, what are the big impacts you're seeing from mobility?
For us, I think and our customers, it's choice and the ability for them to get the information that they require on their terms. So, you know, if someone wants to get access to a report or some information or a document via their phone because they're lying in bed because they want an early insight of what's going on within their business, that should just fine. If they then want to move to a bigger screen real estate device because they want to start to work on that document, interact with it more, and then maybe that there's a problem with a particular area of the business that's outside of tolerance, outside of their core KPIs, they may want to then send a message to that person in the business that's expert in that area to start to do some root cause analysis on what's going on in their business. So I think it's about having the choice to consume the information on whichever device suits the role of the business person in the environment they're currently wanting to work.
Yeah, no, good insights there. And Paul, how's mobility going to change Rico? What do you think the big impacts will be there?
I think I've probably reiterated before. I think as people start to take devices that we obviously take to market and actually take content and consume it differently, they're going to do it. They're on the move, and the fact that they're on the move, then they need a secure device. And you know, it's a logical extension for us to align ourselves behind what we already do. And so, you know, simplistically, if someone has an idea, they can put it into a document, and they typically would consume that document in a number of ways. So, you know, it's just a natural thing for us to do. The journey we have to get onto, though, is make sure that that device is appropriate for the consumer who consumes what we do and what they do as a business. And you know, the characteristic and the persona, which I mentioned before, is so key. That, you know, I think Microsoft actually is so far ahead of that concept that anyone else, in the fact that they already have their technology mapping to personas of workers, whether it's 365 or Yammer or Windows 8 phone or whatever it might be. And we're just hooking onto that. So we're just jumping onto Microsoft's coattails and following that persona journey because we think it fits very well with our core value proposition.
Good. Yeah, I think a lot of good examples there. And Ian, how is this going to impact policing in the future? I mean, you gave some great examples earlier.
I think initially it is, as Paul just said, for us, the whole journey has been about the secure, robust platform that it is and what it exists on, and that whole use of the common user experience is big for us. But from a mobility sense, it'll be more and more about how we become more agile as an organisation. Clearly, we have to think differently. Austerity is hitting hard, you know, through government, so it's absolutely upon us to be able to think about how we work more efficiently. We're finally becoming agile as an organisation, you know, even to a sense of we're actually closing some police stations during the day, not physically to the public, but we're saying our cops can't go back. You know, you have full access to all your solutions. You can be out, you can be visible to the public, you can be in Costa, you can be wherever you like. You have that full remit to work in an agile, mobile fashion, and the more and more that we make our information more interactive, certainly through our partners, you know, we look more and more at the NHS, we look more and more at government in the way that information becomes accessible, the more powerful it becomes. And, you know, and the final step for us is about how we become more interactive with the public. And certainly from a mobile sense, we want the public to have the ability to log their crime online, to have the ability to pay fines, to firearms licensing, any of those searches, any of those briefs that they can get from an interactive sense via mobile is absolutely the way that we need to begin. You know, we're going to achieve the ambitious point of beginning to try and channel shift police. You know, people clearly like to pick up the phone and dial 101 and dial 999. How do we stop some of that from happening? How do we how do we make them as information rich as we are?
Yeah, no, I think great examples there. Peter.
Okay, so I think probably for us, when I think about it, you know, we've done mobile for a long time, and we've probably got, I don't know, 40, 45,000 people on mobile devices. And I expect, like most of us in the room, historically a lot of that's been about mobile email, right? And mobile email was great, and you know, it lets us do lots of things and stay in contact more of the time. But the thing I see changing a lot now is more and more of what our people do, they can do on mobile devices. And that starts to make quite a difference because you know, the way I think of it is IT getting out of the way of people getting on and getting their jobs done, right? So, you know, less and less people, you know, the thing they could do before on a mobile might be part of the journey of what they needed to get done, and now they can start to complete that journey. So the whole thing can get done. So rather than needing to go back to their PC or, you know, phoning someone or doing something to, you know, complete the journey in a different way, we can complete it on the device. You know, on a mobile device. And I think the other thing is it starts to, the apps start to unlock things that we've just never been able to do before. So I'll give you one example, which is with some of our engineering community. They have to go out, they're out in, I don't know, maybe they're out in a shopping centre and they have to find a piece of our equipment that's in the shopping centre in order to do a piece of work. And it might take the engineer half an hour to find it because we'll have a description of where it is, but they have trouble finding it in the shopping centre. What they can do now with the mobile device is GPS enabled, that's great, right? So they can get near to it. But then if they have trouble finding it, what the engineers can now do is they can take a picture of where it is, they can put a little note in, they submit that on the app. The next time the next engineer comes along to that, they can see the photo, they can see the guidance, and so all of a sudden we're unlocking in people, you know, the ability to share in a way that we've just never been able to do before. And you know, they've been able to take pictures, GPS, the ability to in the moment just go, oh, I'll share that and I'll share that back in because it's not expensive for me. It takes me 10 seconds and you know I'm done. I think can make a real difference to all sorts of things that we do.
No, I think great examples and in all across the different businesses represented. I think you see how mobility is really impacting the business, how it's the depth of the ecosystem and the platform that really matters. So I do want to say thank you to the panel. Really appreciate you coming up, sharing your insights. I'd appreciate if the audience could recognize that. And that brings us to the end of the day. So I want to say thank you all very much for your time. I know you're all busy. I know taking a morning out of the day is a big commitment. We do have a survey that was on your chair or under your chair. I would appreciate it if you could take the time to fill that out. Like I said, we value your time. We want to get your feedback. We want to make sure these events are as good as they can be. Just to encourage you a little bit, there are 5 Lumia 630s. Chris talked about this device, but there are 5 of those that we'll give out randomly at 12:30. So as we break, we have lunch provided. We have some of our partners showcasing some things. Your Microsoft account teams will also be out there if you have any questions or want to follow up. But please take time to have lunch, connect with each other, grab me if you need anything else. And thanks again for coming in and spending half a day with Microsoft.